So you've decided to become civilized and put a muffler on the old boomstick so you can quit blowing everybody's eardrums out. Here's a few things for you to think about and do before you ever go to the store to buy one. Every week, without fail, I have at least 2 people come up to me and ask the question, I want to get a suppressor, but I don't even know where to start. Generally, this conversation is going to end up being somewhere between a half hour and an hour long, and then they're not even ready to purchase their suppressor yet at the end of it. They're just getting started. And that's why I've decided to make this video to help all you guys basically have a starting point for what questions to ask. You need to set a set of parameters so that you can even figure out what you need, so that then you can go do a profile, possibly get a trust, and even get yourself set up before you even go to the store to purchase a suppressor. First off, let's just go ahead and dispel the myth that these will make your firearm silent. They do not. On a .22 long rifle, it comes really close. But on your average center fire, they're not even close. The original patent refers to them as a silencer, but they are not silent. That's why now we pretty much refer to them as suppressors, because that's what they do. They take most of the top end noise off and suppress them. For the most part, most of them will get your guns under 140 decibels, which is considered hearing safe for a short-term, one-time sound event. When I'm out target shooting most of my rifles, I will still wear some type of earplug or over-the-ear muff, something like that, even though on most bolt actions, it's really not too bad for making your ears ringing. But if a guy is out there with his buddies and you guys are just mag dumping this thing into a trash pile or blowing up watermelon, something like that, you definitely still will want to wear some type of hearing protection. The first thing that I would have you think about is, what type of shooting are you going to do with it? You know, under what parameters? Are we just going out hunting? You know, we're going to put it on an elk rifle, a deer rifle. We're basically, you know, taking one shot, shooting that deer. We're thinking more about, you know, we get a lightweight can. Are we doing some casual shooting, plinking out in the backyard? You know, is it going to be on a handgun, a rifle, you know, just plinking around with it? You know, are you doing something more like long-range shooting, more like what I like to do? And then are you doing it in a PRS setting or an NRL setting where, you know, you basically got to shoot somewhere between 8 and 12 shots in about a minute and a half, so that firing schedule is a little bit quicker? Are you going so far as to needing a little bit more of a hard use can where, you know, are you going to put it on a prairie dog rifle and you're going to go out, sit above a prairie dog town, and you are just going to melt down that .22 250 barrel, you know, in pretty short order? Are you going to a training class where you're going to shoot between 500 and 1,000 rounds at this class, you know, just running that AR, you know, on a carbine class, doing transition drills, doing build drills, you know, some high-speed shooting where you're going to get that thing pretty hot? You need to figure out, you know, what style of shooting you want to do with this can. The second thing that I want you to think about is, what calibers are we going to try shooting out of this thing? You know, are you going to do a bunch of rimfire stuff where you need a designated rimfire can? Because they will need to be a rimfire can where you can take the thing apart and clean out all that lead that's going to build up in this thing. Your standard can is welded. You can't open it up to get all that cleaned out. So most of the time you don't want to use a rimfire in your standard can. Are you going to be shooting somewhere between, you know, your average calibers between a 223 all the way up to a 300 Win Mag, you know, then are you going to get that 30 caliber can where you can shoot anything from a 300 Norma mag down to a 223? Are you going to be shooting handgun stuff? Are you going to be shooting big bore stuff where you're going to need something that'll go up to 45 caliber on a rifle? Are you going to be shooting something, you know, 9mm? What calibers, you know, do you want to run through this gun? Is it going to be a do-all can with all of those calibers where you're going to do something like a hybrid or a primal where you can shoot anything? Or is it going to be, you know, something a little more specific? That also leads into the next step is, are those guns that you own and those calibers, are they already threaded? You know, or can that barrel be threaded? Would be the next step. If it's not, is the barrel thick enough to get it threaded? You'll probably need to talk to a gunsmith about that, see if there is enough there to get those threads on there and give it enough shoulder for that can to butt up against. Maybe like on an AR, you can possibly just swap that barrel out easily, or, you know, you can use some excuses like I've done and make it so it's just like, well, I'm just going to get a whole nother rifle to put the suppressor on. If your guns are already threaded, find out what that thread is. The majority of common stuff here in the US is either going to be 1/2 by 28 or 5/8 by 24. Seem to be the two most common threads that I run into on barrels. But once you know that, then we also have to decide with that thread, which way are we going to run? Are we, you know, going to have multiple ARs and we're going to use the same can, like on this 300 Blackout, then I can take this thing and I'm also going to run it on my 5.56 ARs. So I'm just going to quick attach this thing and run one for those multiple ARs. Or is it going to be more like my hunting rifles and my precision rifles, where some of these guns, they just wear this one can. And for, you know, all intensive purposes for precision, I like to just direct thread these things on here and not use any type of quick attach system. So you'll have to kind of make up your mind on that as to which way you want to go, direct thread or quick attach. Now that we've set our parameters for what we're looking for in a suppressor, we should probably start in on some of the actual footwork that we need to do before we go to the shop. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to the ATF website and set yourself up a profile. The majority of shops now will file the Form 4 on the e-form system on a computer or a kiosk of some sorts. There are still some shops, and I believe, you know, at the time of me recording this video right now, you can still file paper, but I believe most shops have moved to doing it electronically, so you will need to set up an e-file profile. So you go to this website right here, eforms.atf.gov. So here's what it looks like. Right here on the right, there's a Create an eForms account. Just click on that. You will end up giving your information here, and they will end up sending you a basically kind of a confirmation email. And in the end, what you'll have is a username, a password, and a PIN number. You will need those three things when you go to the shop to buy your suppressor and fill out the actual Form 4 there. Now, I'll tell you that you should set this profile up before you go into the store, because that email that they send back to you that has a link in it to finish that back off, basically create the loop that checks to see if you've given a valid email address and to finalize your account. I've seen that take anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes to sometimes it takes somewhere around 3-4 hours to get that email back. So you don't want to just be standing around the gun store waiting that long for the ATF to email you back the finalization of your profile on their site. Now that you have your profile all set up, you will have to make the choice on how you want to be purchasing this suppressor. The two main ways that people end up doing it is either as an individual or they create a trust. Now, I am no lawyer, and this is not legal advice whatsoever. It's just a suggestion saying that you need to decide which way you are going to file this paperwork when you do your Form 4. The first way, as an individual, basically, you are the sole person that is in charge of this can. No one else can use it when you are not around. The second way to purchase your suppressor is through a NFA Trust. Now, there's multiple ways that you can get a trust made. If you're purchasing it through a kiosk, they will have either a single-use trust or a multiple-use trust on there. I went online and purchased mine from nationalguntrust.com. Super simple. Only costs most time they're like $60 or something like that. Or then the third way, you can go to a local lawyer and have them form you a trust. The problem with that one is not every lawyer knows what an NFA trust consists of, so you have to have a specific lawyer to do that, and it will also cost you a little bit more money. When I was doing some looking into it, I think they were anywhere from like $200 to $450 to get them made by somebody that's pseudo-local to me. Now, when it comes to the trusts and having the single-use trust or the multiple-use trust, I prefer the multiple. With the single-use, then you have to keep track of all that paperwork and making sure you've got the right paperwork with you when you travel. If you have the multiple-use trust, then they're all in there and you don't have to worry about it. It's less paperwork to have to deal with. With that single-use trust, apparently it's easier than if somebody else wants to buy that suppressor from you, that then you can add them as a trustee and sell it off to them. A little bit easier. But I don't intend on doing any of that. I just keep adding to the pile. So I'm using the multiple trust or the multiple item trust and just doing it that way to keep things simplified. Now, why would you get a trust? Simply because that way you can let multiple people, or trustees as they're referred to in your trust, that can use it. That way, if I'm not home and there's a coyote out running across the backyard, going after my wife's chickens, she can grab my AR with the suppressor on it and she can use it. If my dad wants to take one of my guns hog hunting, he's one of my trustees, then I can let him take that and the paperwork with him, and it's all legal for him to go without me being present hog hunting somewhere else. Most of the time, these trusts will also kind of break it down later. So my kids are named as beneficiaries. If something should happen to me, I pass away, they will be handed down to my children, and everything is already taken care of right there in that trust paperwork. There is a third way of doing it, which is by buying them under a corporation, which I don't know anybody that has done it that way. I would assume it entails you actually making a business and the business purchasing them, and then it is property of that. That's probably, a whole bunch more stuff that you got to do. And like I said, I don't know anybody that's done it that way. So I'm not going to speak on that. Nonetheless, it is up to you to know the legality of what is legal in your state. Here in my state, it is legal to do it in a trust, and that's why I did it that way. I believe there are a couple of the 42 states that I believe currently where suppressors are legal, that there's a couple of them that don't allow trusts, or they have to have the trust amended certain ways, but that is up to you to get all of that figured out so that you stay, you know, on the legal side of things and nobody wants to get arrested and get their gun rights taken away. Now that we've set all of our parameters and we've got our trust in hand, you got it notarized if it needs to be, and we got our username, password, and PIN number all written down, it's time to go to a shop. Most shops ought to have at least 1 or 2 guys in there that really have had a little bit more experience and have used multiple cans and should be able to tell you, I mean, regardless of which brand of suppressors the shop carries, all of those brands will make some cans kind of in that lightweight, you know, hunting style can versus like hard use cans. He should be able to direct you as to which one you need. That's the bad thing about going to a kiosk. Super simple to fill out all the information, scan your fingerprints and do all that. But it's not real helpful on a decision as to which can you should buy. So it's kind of gonna lean on one of those employees of the gun store that you go to. If they can't really answer all of your can questions, then I would say, you know, I hate to tell you to leave that shop, but seek out somebody else who does have a little bit more information and they can help you in choosing which one to buy, because this is going to take somewhere, I mean, lately I've seen it take anywhere from about 4 months all the way up to a little over a year. So we want to make sure that we buy the right one the first time, and it just helps to talk to somebody that is a little bit more knowledgeable in that area and actually has some hands-on use with multiple cans to steer you in the right direction. Hopefully you find this video, you know, informative, and that it helps you even begin where to start your journey as to buying a suppressor for the first time. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, so you have to start somewhere. And this is just going to get you thinking about what we need to begin with before we even go in and try to select a suppressor. So remember that the biggest warning that I will give you about this is once you buy one, you are probably going to buy 2, and 2 leads to 3. So it does become quite addictive. I mean, especially once you learn, you know, specific use stuff and which ones excel at which things. A guy ends up buying more than one. I mean, they're kind of like tattoos, you know, you get one, you want another. So remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.